Hi guys, and welcome back. I wanted to do a video that kind of walks through the Lenovo One Key recovery process. Um, so there's a couple of reasons for this. I am a heavy Linux user, so I like to have a dual boot system with any kind of particular Linux OS and the Windows system, obviously. And then, but prior to doing all of that, again, like I said, I wanted to show the one key recovery process. And as many of you may know, especially the ones that own Lenovo computers, and it doesn't help that the new Y50 doesn't come with any kind of internal optical drive. If you ever need to recover your system and reset it back to the factory settings, you use this Lenovo One Key, and it basically restores your entire PC back to the initial state that you got it in the box. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and then once that's done, I'm going to make a disk image of the entire hard drive once that's finished. And I'm doing that because when I install my Linux environment and my Windows environment as a dual boot system, I'm going to completely wipe the entire hard drive. Now, wiping the entire hard drive means that I'm going to lose all the OEM Windows information that the One Key recovery uses, meaning that if I wanted to restore this back to the original Windows 8.1 that shipped with it, that info is no longer on the hard drive. So without any further ado, I wanted to pull up the disk management and just talk about that for a second. Let me maximize this guy so that we can see it fairly well. So don't quote me on this, and I'm not entirely sure. However, I'll start here. This is the C drive, and this has Windows 8 8.1 installed on it, and this is the D drive. So these are part of the 1 terabyte hard drive that came with the PC. These are just a couple of partitions. In fact, every one of the different partitions that you see here are all part of that 1 terabyte hard drive. These other partitions that you see are different partitions that Lenovo uses with its recovery process and stuff like that. So anyway, I believe that this 1000 meg partition that you see here they named it the OEM partition. I'm fairly certain that that's probably where all the recovery operating system files reside. And then over here on the right hand side, there's 15 gigs that they called recovery partition. Now again, don't quote me on this, but between this recovery partition and the recovery partition over here on the left, this may be a boot recovery partition, and this one may just contain some stuff that Lenovo needs for its One Key recovery process. Now, when I'm done doing the system recovery and have restored this PC back to its original state, it'll look just like this again. But after I make the disk image so that I don't lose this, when I actually do a complete system reformat and install my dual boot Linux Windows environment, I don't want to lose this OEM partition in case, maybe I sell the laptop later or get rid of it, or at some point just decide that I want to get it back to the factory state. I don't want to lose all this information. So let's get out of this, and I can walk you through the recovery process for those that haven't ever seen it. And who knows, down the road may one day be interested in doing it. So under Lenovo here, there's a start menu group Lenovo, and right here that's highlighted right now is the one key recovery. So we're going to go ahead and click that and approve this deal. And so there's a couple of different options you get here. You can make a system backup, which also, I believe that this only saves an image of your system partitions. So in my guess is that, you know, it's probably just C and D. But what we're going to do is the system recovery, and we're going to restore this laptop back to its initial factory defaults, settings, hard drive configurations, etc. So let's go ahead and see what that involves. It gives you a message box asking if you'd like to reboot your computer into the system recovery environment, and that's what we're going to do. So yes. So while this is restarting, to give you a little bit more info of what I'm going to do is, you know, once I make the image file of the default factory settings, you know, I'm just going to hang on to that, and I'll keep it on an external hard drive or, you know, somewhere else that's safe, and you know, hopefully this stuff all works. Also, keep in mind, this is my first time ever actually seeing this, so I may not know exactly what to do right away, but my guess is that it's just going to be a super easy thing. It'll probably ask you a couple of questions and it will just restore. So select task. It says, if you can't read it on the camera, restore from initial backup. The system partition will be restored to the initial status. That's what I want to do. Gives you some basically information. I think it tells you what hard disk partition it's going to use to basically reinstall everything. And down here is a start button, and I'm going to click that, and it's probably going to go do its thing. Are you sure you want to restore? Yeah. Restoring your system partition will delete all data. That's fine. I have that all backed up. Okay, it's going to do its thing. I'm not going to sit here and obviously record this whole process, so I'll pause the video here, and when this is all done, I'll turn the old camera back on, and I'll talk about what we're going to do to make a disk image of the hard drive. So until then, we'll be right back. Okay, and we're back. We've done the whole system recovery process, and the whole process the recovery process alone took almost exactly 17 minutes, with another 15 minutes or so of just setting up Windows 8.1, where, you know, you enter your username, select your time zone, all that good stuff. You know, so for the folks that just wanted to kind of see a walkthrough of the recovery process and how to use the Lenovo One Key, that's pretty much it. However, you know, so if you don't want to see anything beyond this point, feel free to just stop watching the video. Otherwise, if you're interested in, you know, watching the disk image process and eventually watching, you know, what the result is of the dual boot system, please keep watching. So before we talk about the imaging, I would just like to say that I'm actually going to use a free disk image software package. Now, because I have a Western Digital hard drive in this PC, that allows me to use a disk imaging software package called Acronis for free. And then just to, for those of you that need to verify if you want to figure out if you have a Western Digital hard drive or not, one of the things I do is I come over here, I right click on the start button, and I go to Device Manager. There may be quicker ways, easier ways to do this, but this is just one of the ways that I do it. So under the disk drives tab over here, you'll see that this hard drive starts with the name of this starts with WD. That just indicates to me that it's a Western Digital drive. And you can see here also that it has the SSHD 8 gig portion of that as well. And sorry. So I'm just going to pull up the properties just to see if that tells us that it's a Western Digital or not. I don't recall seeing that, but we certainly can look. Yeah, it doesn't really say anything on here. Anyway, so that's that. Let's, since we reinstalled everything, the only browser I have on here right now is IE. That's not a problem. But so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do a search for Western Digital Acronis, and let's do the search. And so this pops this is an ad up here, or the Acronis official website. Don't go there unless you really want to pay some bucks. They offer a free trial, but I think you're limited to how big the disk image can be. So if you do have a Western Digital hard drive, let's go here. So this is the Acronis True Image software, which is the Western Digital edition. So I'm going to go ahead and download this. I'm going to install it, and then I'll turn on the video again and walk you through the image process. So, all right, I'll be right back. Okay, so I've downloaded and installed the Acronis True Image Western Digital Edition. And some of these things on the front here are different things that Acronis offers. Unfortunately for Acronis, I don't use any of that. But here under the Backup and Recovery tab, what we're going to do to make the image is the disk and partition backup. So you may recall at the beginning of this video when we took a look at the disk management and all the different disk partitions and what have you that we saw. Let's get this guy up, and we'll see that Acronis picks all of those up and not just your C and D drive that's visible to you in your Windows File Explorer. So right away here on the left, on the left-hand side here, you see these check boxes. You'll notice that these are all the different partitions that we saw in the disk management earlier, including the C drive that has Windows on it and the D drive that comes pre-packaged with Lenovo stuff that, drivers and some applications and whatnot. So because I'm going to wipe the entire hard drive, so that there's absolutely no partitions on it anymore except for the ones that I want, we're going to select that also, and we're going to select this one that's hidden. This way, with all of these checked right here, at least of the ones that are kind of highlighting anyway, that is the hard drive as we know it right now. Now this external bin you see right here is an external hard drive that I'm using just to store the disk image. In fact, you can see down here that the destination is going to be at E My Backups. The estimated size of the entire disk image is roughly 26 gigs. So the only thing I'm going to do down here is I'm going to change the backup name or the disk image name from my partition to Lenovo Y50. You know what, we'll call it factory image. And then down here, the backup now, you know what, let's just take a look at the disk backup options. Image creation mode. Yeah, none of these I really care for to mess with, so we're just going to leave it as is. We're going to hit the backup now, and this is going to continue to do its thing. And when this is all done and backed up, we'll start the hard drive wipe, and perhaps cross our fingers. So anyway, we'll let this run. It says the estimated time is about 28-30 minutes. It's jumping all around, so I'm not really sure. Anyhow, I'll be back when this is finished. Okay, so I have created the backup and boot images of exactly what you see listed here. So with everything being backed up, I'm getting ready to pretty much wipe everything out and start from scratch and set up my my dual boot system. So some of the Windows setup has already started, and I just wanted to get to this point to go through deleting partitions and creating some new partitions for you to just at least show you how I set up my dual boot. So let's go ahead and get rid of some of these partitions. So it may take a second or two to wipe each one out. You'll see as you delete the partitions that it turns into unallocated space. That becomes somewhat important in a few minutes when we set up partitions for Linux and our other partitions for Windows. Okay, so right now, if we were to format this and install Windows only, you would have just one disk partition, other than some partitions that Windows may create for boot purposes. But anyway, so we're going to go ahead and create a new partition. And I wanted to dedicate 500 gigs of the 1 terabyte hard drive to the Windows OS. So 500 gigs is, oops, number pad is off. 512,000 megs. So when we apply that, you can see some of the other system partitions that Windows created for its recovery purposes and boot purposes and stuff like that. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4 disk partitions that Windows uses. So you'll see now that we still have 431.5 gigs worth of unallocated space that we could use for whatever we want. Now, because I do like having a secondary quote-unquote drive for my Windows system, I'm going to take some of this and just create another drive for you know, just storage purposes and whatnot. And I am going to make that drive 300 gigs. So that's 307,200. So let's create that also. Now the remaining unallocated space, 131.5 gigs, I'm going to dedicate to my Linux operating system. For now, because Linux doesn't use NTFS, at least to my knowledge, it can read it. I don't think it uses it. For now, I'm actually going to leave that unallocated so that when we go in and install Linux, we can use this space right here to install the Linux operating system and essentially create the dual boot. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the 500 gig partition that we created, and we're going to select this one to install on, or to install Windows 8.1 on. So we're going to hit next, and it's going to go through installing Windows to that drive, and when that's done, I'll pop the video back on and we can look at some of the other things, specifically in installing Linux on the unallocated space. So I will be right back. Okay, so Windows 8.1 has been installed, and I just want to pop open the File Explorer real quick, and you'll see that the only disk that is showing right now is the 500 gig primary C drive that we created during setup. So to get our D drive to show back up, which you may recall we allocated at 300 gigs, we're going to come down here, right click on the Start menu, go to Disk Management. I'll maximize this so it gets bigger. Now you'll see that here's the 300 gig raw partition that we created, and here's the 131 or so gigs that we are going to use for Linux eventually. We're not going to touch this one right now. Right here, the first thing we need to do is I'm going to format the drive so that it's an NTFS. I'll just name it Media Bin, and quick format is fine. So let's go ahead and do that. Okay, so now we have a formatted NTFS file system partition. Now, at first you may think, oh great, this is great, but if you open up the File Explorer down here, you'll see that it still doesn't show up in here. So to fix that, what you need to do on here is right-click, and this is the key, change drive letter and paths. So we'll do that. We'll add a path. We're going to assign it the letter D and hit OK. Okay, so now you probably heard the little ding, and you see this up here in the right-hand corner maybe, or maybe the camera's too low. But anyway, so now you can see that this drive has been assigned to D. So now if we open up our File Explorer, you can see that this media bin is here. We can navigate to it, create folders, files, what have you. And now we have our C drive that has the just the basic Windows installation stuff. So I need to go through, as you'll see, since, oops, I clicked the wrong thing. I need to go through and install all the drivers that came with the original factory setup from Lenovo. But what I had to do was, before I wiped out the entire hard drive, I copied over all the, at least default drivers that come with the Lenovo laptop. Now, I will update all of those to the latest. You know, for example, the graphics driver and all that will be all updated. But I wanted to show you here that in the device manager, most of the stuff was found. It surprised me that right away, it's just using Microsoft and generic Bluetooth stuff. I'll probably reinstall that. But I was just surprised that it recognized the Bluetooth, period. But you'll see these devices here that have little question marks on them. Those are all from the drivers that Lenovo supplies for you, and I will install those, get those all up and running, update them as necessary, and we'll come back and I'll show you that this has all been fixed up, and then we'll proceed to install Linux. So I'll be right back. Okay, so we have Windows 8.1 fully installed now. All the drivers have been updated and everything is good to go. So what I did was I mounted an Ubuntu image and set that to read from that mount, and so we booted into it. And so what we're going to do now is, you remember the unallocated space that we created earlier in the video. We're going to install Ubuntu onto that particular unallocated space. So let's go ahead and let it get started, and I'll install Ubuntu, and then we'll continue the video from there. Okay, so Ubuntu's been installed, and as you see, we installed Ubuntu after Windows. So Ubuntu, by default, when you install after Windows, begins to use the grub boot menu instead of maybe what you may or may not be used to if you have ever seen a Windows boot menu. And that's perfectly fine with me. I actually prefer the grub boot menu. So now when I restart my computer every time, this is what I'm going to see, and hopefully this will focus in. So the options then that you have is to start Ubuntu, and then there's some advanced options that you can hop into, and then it says Windows Boot Manager. All that does is, if you select that option, you'll just boot up Windows. And then System Setup is actually just to boot into the BIOS for the laptop. So we'll go ahead and finish up installing some Ubuntu stuff, and we'll go ahead and boot into it now, and we'll be right back when that's up. Okay, so as you can see, the Ubuntu Linux operating system is now installed on the new Y50 as a dual boot operating system setup. Everything's running great. Just doing some software updates up there in the or down there in the lower right corner. And I think that I'll call this a video. The one thing I want to say is, even though I walked through a handful of steps to, image your default factory setup from Lenovo and hang on to that, and then, wipe your hard drive completely and install a dual boot system. One warning and somewhat of a disclaimer that I'm going to give is, if you don't know, I guess, exactly what you're doing when you do this kind of stuff, I just wouldn't do it. Otherwise, you may have to contact Lenovo if the hard drive gets wiped and it's unrecoverable, because that's all in all, where your recovery disks reside when you get the laptop from Lenovo, or wherever you got it from. So that being said, just be very cautious if you try to do something like this, and I guess that's the video. So I hope you enjoyed it. Leave some comments if you have any questions, and leave some likes if you learned something or just liked it in general. So I guess that's it for now, and we'll see you guys in the next video.